Thank you. At this time, we will begin taking questions from the audience. I would like to remind of the candidates that they have up to 90 seconds to respond. Please signal me if you would like to add a 60-second follow-up response, and again, we'll use the rotation chart. So to the first question from the audience. Except for the old village, Mount Pleasant is not pedestrian friendly. What would you do to make it pedestrian friendly? We'll start with you, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you. Well, I'm a cyclist myself, so I'm really in favor of trying to put in pedestrian bike paths everywhere we can. I've worked with the Council of Governments, as I stated earlier, and one of the things that the Highway Department is doing is whenever they do work on roads now, that is one of the things that they take into consideration is that pedestrian and bike paths. In Mount Pleasant, we already have a lot of the streets that are already built. Now, my thing is when you come to changing an environment, my thing is to ask the citizens first, what do they want? If you want to have bike paths in the old village, my first thing would be to ask the citizens how they feel about it before doing it. Because I know some people are against bike paths, but except myself, I am in favor of it. And on council, I would do as much as I can to make sure that we have more bike paths in the town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Glassman.
Reiteration because of what George said. Are you asking about specifically the old village or the town?
No, it says that except for the old village, Mount Pleasant is not pedestrian friendly. What would you do to make it more pedestrian friendly?
Well, first, I don't know if I would agree with that 100%. You look at each individual cluster of homes or developments, Brickyard, I'm out in Park West, Dunes West, within each community is very pedestrian friendly. The walkways and sidewalks are set up with bike paths and walk paths throughout the community, so you can really get from one area to the other. But thinking beyond that, and I was going to comment on George, if it wasn't the old village, I don't know if I would broach putting bike paths and all that inside the old village, and so that's why I asked about the question. When you look at us as a town and look at our comprehensive plan, look at what's being done on 17, you should be able to get on your bicycle, and I live all the way out in Park West, get on your bicycle and ride downtown, or to Isle of Palms, or to Sullivan's Island, and not have to utilize your automobile. Now, I enjoy getting in my automobile and popping the top down and enjoy the roads, but having it so you have that option, and not a controlled maintenance that you have to do, I think really creates a good community. So, 30 seconds? So we don't have to use our whole seconds, do we?
You do not.
Okay, but I like to talk, so I'll just talk.
There's that.
So when you look at that plan, it does provide that opportunity. And I think the healthy lifestyle that presents is a great add-on, but I mean, I think we do have it in many areas, as we connect them all, so it's important. 10, 9, 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
ANSI, the state of South Carolina ADA law requires that all municipalities to have a minimum of 50 miles of sidewalk and cycle lane area for pedestrians, for bicycles, and for disabled people to get around the community. And I believe that this municipality is quite short in that, and so I believe that more sidewalks and bike lanes are needed to stand up to the state law.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols?
I would be very shocked if all the candidates were not in favor of bike paths and sidewalks in the town of Mount Pleasant. And I'm in favor of them too. But I think what we need to look at right now is we have a prioritization problem in our town. And the prioritization problem, unfortunately, probably is not bike paths and sidewalks, at least right now. At least not while the money is not coming in like it has been over the last 10 years. We have to take a look at funding our core services in this town. Police, fire, public services, and yes, the retiree health care benefit, which I'm sure we'll talk about more this evening, that's looming over us. To Ken's point about Park West and some of the other subdivisions, some of the developers have done a nice job within those subdivisions on connectivity. I believe that the road projects that you see including Coleman Boulevard revitalization, Highway 17, and others, do include bike and walking trail connectivity features. Some of them don't make any sense to me, like a shared lane on Highway 17. That means you will share your bike lane with an automobile going 70 miles an hour, and I wouldn't allow anyone I care for to go anywhere near that. But I'd like to talk to more. It's a prioritization problem, and I'm here to tell you that is not at the top of my list right now. It's those core services and getting through this turbulent economic times that we have.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
You know, the city of Charleston did a study. I think this is an excellent question. They found that 75 to 80% of people wanted to be able to work where they live. They wanted to be able to walk to their jobs, or ride their bikes. They wanted to be there in 5 minutes or less. And I think that works downtown, and it works really well. Unfortunately, Mount Pleasant grew so fast and it grew so far north that we didn't infill the way that a typical town would because of the nature of the way we grew. So, you know, I think bike paths and walking paths are important, but I think we're going to have to accomplish that through infill. It's going to have to be done by the private sector. Businesses and neighborhoods are going to have to come in and fill in these sections between the bridge and the north end of town. And as they do that, retail and other things that are needed for those residents will follow. To Chris's point, I think we have to look at the cost too. I mean, the cost of putting bike paths or putting sidewalks all through town, that's not cheap. And when we're looking at a town that has no deferred maintenance for the roads or parks that we have, and we have $19 million in debt currently, I think we just have to be really careful about how much money we spend and where we spend it. So I understand both sides of the argument, but I hope we can accomplish this through some private sector growth and not through the town going through and try to put bike lanes or paths there at the expense of, again, not giving up on our core services. We really need to be careful about what we do there. Take care of our employees and take care of our town. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
We were instructed at the beginning of this, if we don't have different comments that was said earlier, that we should allow time for more questions. But I would re-emphasize that we do not need to look for the government to be, we should not be supporting a bigger government. We don't need to look for government to create jobs and to solve all of our problems. I would be a strong proponent on a smaller government, less regulations, less mandates, and less invasion of private property rights. I think that we do have a prioritization of spending problem, as was mentioned here. I won't reiterate those priorities that have been identified already 2 or 3 times already, but we have some expenses that we need to pay our current bills before we create more opportunities to spend money.
Thank you. Ms. Stokes Marshall?
Thank you. I'll go back to the town of Mount Pleasant's comprehensive plan. As I indicated before, the comprehensive plan charts the course for the direction in which the town will move for the next 10 to 20 years. In that plan, it calls for bike paths as part of our transportation improvement plan. Years ago, developers were not required to put in sidewalks. Many of our older communities do not have sidewalks because they were not required to do so. Now they are required. If you notice in most of our new development, there are sidewalks. I strongly support pedestrian-friendly environment and communities. I think that we should have bike paths where at all possible. And if you notice, we have already started that in Mount Pleasant. We are working with an organization in Charleston to ultimately develop what would be called battery to beach, whereas we can move from this side of the bridge all the way over to Charleston and to Foley Beach. The other thing that's extremely important is public transportation. A lot of people don't want to look at the fact of having public transportation in the town of Mount Pleasant. We're projected to be 100,000 within the next 10, 15 years. We need public transportation. It will serve a great purpose of mobility here in the town of Mount Pleasant. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos?
Thank you. In the early 2000s, I led an effort to try to retrofit some of the streets in Mount Pleasant with sidewalks, and we were successful at that on Fairmont Street, Scott Street, and a couple of others, but it was tremendously expensive. It was very expensive. And one of the great failings that we found was that we didn't have interconnectivity between neighborhoods. And as Ms. Stokes Marshall has said, the developers were required to put in sidewalks, And I found that the developers are very eager to do those things that will help in the neighborhoods. You simply had to ask the question. And we did, and those are beginning to appear now. But interconnectivity between neighborhoods is something that needs to be continued in the planning. Also in the realm of public transportation. It's great to have pedestrian-friendly towns for public transportation. But the thing is, we need to have bus stops where people can stand out of the weather, where they can wait for the bus and be in a safe environment. So CARTA's going to have to help, planning is going to have to help, and this is simply not something you can throw dollars at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Well, I think everything's kind of been talked about, and of course everyone agrees that bikeways and pedestrian, sidewalks and everything is very important to this town. But once again, it's a budget item. We've got to really look at it, each individual section that needs it and works with it, and make sure that the developers, and once again, the comp plan requires for the developers to put in sidewalks. They're very happy to do that. Interconnectivity's been talked on, CARTA's been talked on. So yeah, I think that this is a very important issue, and I'm very supportive of public access to all the walkways and bikeways. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to the next question from the audience. The Mount Pleasant Senior Center is overflowing. Are you in favor of, 1, expanding the current center, or 2, locating a new center in Park West? And we will begin with Mr. Glassen.
I remember when we dedicated the senior center, and it was my honor to be one of the people that to honor Thomasina in having it dedicated to her, and the effort that she put forth to make a great center. And I tease her a little bit because during that time I was looking forward to one day being old enough to actually join it. So I say that wholeheartedly, and she tells me each year that I'm getting closer, and 2 more years and I'll be there. We just dedicated the cafe to our former mayor, Harry Hallman. When you look at the facility, it is amazing what it provides. Being a member of a local gym, I know the expense of it is considerably less. First class all the way, of course, I'm in favor of it. In place, when we talked about that, some of the planning of expanding the existing structure to take on the additional need. And in 2 years, there'll be another needed person, and that would be me trying to keep my waist down. So yes, I would be in favor of that. It's a wonderful community. Thank you.
Mr. Michael?
Myself, I am in favor of an expansion of the already existing facility with the same level of skill and ability of that facility and its employees to the members of the community who may need to live in that facility to have good lives.
Thank you. Mr. Nicholas?
Let me start by just talking about our seniors here in Mount Pleasant. God bless all of you. And here's why. Seniors are often, in some cases, not all cases, but in our town, tend to be comfortably retired. They tend to not impact schools. They tend to not congest roads during the busiest times of the day. And they tend to spend their dollars locally at our retail establishments, and that puts money into the town coffers. God bless our seniors. The Thomasina Stokes Marshall Senior Center, of which I am also 2 years away from qualifying for, but which my wife Kim Marie does qualify for, is a wonderful place. However, just saying, hey, she brags about marrying younger. She looks like that. However, the question is this: are you in favor, at this point in time, given this economy, of either expanding the current senior center or building one, as I understand it, publicly, using your tax money, one in Park West? And I would have to answer that probably not. Now, if you could find a developer willing to donate some land, and if there could be some sort of like public-private partnership, I might be more interested in looking at that. But at this point in time, I'm going to have to go with a no. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill?
Obviously, I think everybody would say that it would be great to have another senior center. I mean, while we're on it, I mean, I think 3 would be nice. I mean, we've got a large senior population in Mount Pleasant, and they'd love to use the senior center. But the issue is, you know, we just don't have the money right now. I think, you know, if the town begins to grow again, that's certainly something that we can take a look at. But right now, we need to be careful. Expanding the existing senior center doesn't require us to hire any additional staff. It doesn't require us to, you know, take up any more land than what we already have. So I certainly hope that that's the route that we would go. Again, we just really need to be careful about how we're looking at our finances. We can continue to spend, and I think that would be great, but I think we have a great facility there that we can expand. I certainly hope that we can get to a point where it's adequate for the number of people that want to be there, because it is a great center, and it's certainly well used. It's what you want to have happen is when you build a building, or when you do a development as a town council, you want to make sure that people are using it, and I think that we are. So that tells me that this is something that residents appreciate. And again, there's a lot of projects that I think would be great to be done, but we just need to be careful, again, about how we're looking at this. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith?
Again, I would say we are very blessed to have such a wonderful facility here in our community. But given the state of the economy, nationally, state, and locally, how could we justify spending money on a new senior center when we haven't taken care of the debts and the bills that we have today? We have almost $20 million unfunded liability on the books. That didn't just happen overnight, folks. It's happened over years. The expense every year is about, my understanding, is about $1.7 million. Every year we fund that retired health benefits at about $500,000, kicking the can down the road. Our good people of Mount Pleasant who've put their time in, earned their benefits, don't deserve for the current and future administrations to continue to have them worry about their benefits. The people who bought these homes in wonderful communities, the infrastructure, the capital improvement repairs are nearing their life expectancy. We do not have the money currently budgeted or allocated for road infrastructure, existing road and infrastructure to be repaired. I think it's a wonderful idea. As the vice chairman for the South Carolina Aging in Place Coalition, who advocates for seniors often, understands the needs, wants, and desires for our local seniors, I think the answer is no for now.
Thank you. Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Thank you. When I started the fight for the existing senior center, the answer was no then. I did not take that answer because I did not feel it was the right thing to do. Not when our senior population is the fastest growing population in the country. Unlike years ago, when people's life expectancy was a lot shorter, or when they retired, they sat in a rocking chair. Seniors today are quite active. It improves their life. It improves the quality of their life. As far as the existing senior center, when I went after that, it was a cooperative effort. Town didn't have the money then. We worked with the South Carolina Department of Aging, who put in part of the money. We worked with East Cooper Hospital, who donated the land, and Mount Pleasant put up what they could. I don't think we should just close the door. I think we need to explore the opportunities that are out there to expand our existing center. There's also opportunities to work with other entities that may be willing to donate land in the northern end of the town. I think a center in the northern end of the town would be a tremendous plus to our overall town's population as well as our seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos?
Could you repeat the question?
Certainly. The Mount Pleasant Senior Center is overflowing. Are you in favor of A, expanding the current center, or B, locating a new center in Park West?
Okay, and that question, I think we got a little off track there. Whether it's in, and I feel the question is expand it where it is or have one on the north side of town. And my feeling is because of the traffic patterns, just like the schools, we need to have that facility, if we have it at all, on the north side of town. The high school is a perfect example where all the traffic moves to the north end of town, and then as it goes back towards Charleston, as people go to work, it mixes in and creates a traffic problem. Right now where the senior center is, right next to the East Cooper Hospital, traffic's bad. And it's only going to get worse if we have more cars. However, we have Roper Hospital, and if there's a cooperative effort to take the burden off the taxpayer to sponsor a facility like that, here again, I tend to see the glass is half full. I think the opportunity's there, but I think it needs to be on this side of town. And I think Roper, much like East Cooper Hospital, is there and would partner and sponsor that effort. So I think the question was not one of do we or do we not. I think the question was where should it be expanded on the north side, and I say the north side, and answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, Thomasina Stokes has done a beautiful job of getting the current senior center where it is today. And as we speak today, I think 2 weeks ago we met with doing phase 2. And East Cooper Hospital was right on board as far as with the other partners that she put together. She's done a beautiful job. As we speak today, we are in constant communication with Roper Hospital. A lot of people don't realize this, but also the developer of Carolina Park in Navarro. And they are willing and able to help us with the senior center out there. As we speak, it is in the works. So yeah, we're in favor for everything. I think it's going to work out. We just got to let it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
I like being at this ain't that everybody else is already talking. Like everyone else, if the money is available, I see no problem with us expanding the existing senior center. However, if it is possible to build one in the northern part of town, myself personally, I would prefer to have something that involves the younger generation also. Because my thing is that I'm becoming a senior citizen also. And my thing is, I don't like just hanging with my age, I like hanging with the younger generation also. And my reason for that is that I've always felt that as I've gotten older, that I have a lot of knowledge that should be shared with the younger generation. And I'm saying if we don't interact with the younger generation, they don't get to acquire a lot of the knowledge that we possess. So my thing is that we can keep the existing one, but if there's another one built, I would prefer it to be built the way younger people can enjoy it also, so that we could intermingle with the younger generation and share some of the knowledge that we have with the younger generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Mr. Michael?
Just some real quick words here. With the Frankie at Seaside facility and Sandpiper facilities already standing, instead of using money to build a new center in the north area or to expand what is already existing with the senior center, we could also funnel some of our senior citizens into Sandpiper and Frankie at Seaside, which are already existing.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to another question from the audience. What is your current position on development? Are you associated with the beach company directly or indirectly? And will you stand up to developers? Mr. Michael.
I believe that development is possible if managed properly in the Mount Pleasant area, because there is not much property left to be developed at this moment.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
I am not, what, can you read it back? Associated with?
Are you associated with the beach company directly or indirectly, and will you stand up to developers?
Yes, I will stand up to developers. I would love to be extremely associated with the beach company. But I am not. But having said that, John Darby did donate $250 to my campaign, and I was glad to have it. Didn't ask for anything, never have been asked for anything by Mr. Darby or the beach company. But talking about development in general, we say, well, Chris, will you come across as this conservative guy, this frugal guy, will you stand up to a developer? Is all development automatically a rubber stamp? The answer to that is no. And let me give you the prime example of that. I live near the Ravenel Bridge now, but I used to live on the other side of town in Park West. And some of you might recall, because it got quite a bit of press and some television, a controversy involving a developer and the school district and others about moving 140 yellow school buses into a planned unit development, not only just to keep them there, but to service them there, fuel them there, and do mechanics on there. Myself, we started a revolution in my family room with 3 people, and somehow managed to overcome the forces that be, and there, believe me, the developer forces were out, Charleston County School District was out, and we managed to get that down into the school buses that service those schools there, no fueling facility, etc. I have more war stories, but I'd be happy to take on all developers. Not all development is positive for Mount Pleasant.
Mr. O'Neill.
I think the first part, do I have a relationship with the beach company and John Darby? No, I don't. They use a different CPA. And you know, I know John, but certainly not much association beyond that. And certainly they haven't given any money to my campaign, but the current position on development, I'm certainly not opposed to development. I think the issue or the question that's probably being raised in regards to the beach company is they're getting ready to do a mixed-use development on Coleman Boulevard where you see the green fence right now. It's got some campaign signs on it in front of it. That's where they're going to do a little bit of mixed use on Coleman, and that'll be within the town of Mount Pleasant. And town council encouraged this. That's the Urban Corridor Overlay District. This was part of the process to kind of redo Coleman and make it nicer. The development they want to do there is certainly a lot nicer than the old Family Dollar and the shopping center that was there before. And this will be an opportunity where people will be able to work, shop, and live in one area. They'll be able to walk to Shem Creek and enjoy the parks. They'll be able to go down and enjoy Waterfront Park. And you know, to me, this is exactly what, right or wrong, town council intended this area to be. Will I stand up to developers? Certainly, if it's something that's not in the best interest of town. If we don't have the infrastructure to support their development, we need to stand up to developers. But development in and of itself is not bad. I mean, it helps fund the town. It helps fund integral functions. So, thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith is not affiliated with the Beach Company. I did not receive any campaign contributions from the Beach Company. I do have a great deal of respect for the Darby family with what they've done in their philanthropic areas for the community, especially in the nonprofit world. Private property rights are being invaded every day. I would stand up to developers. I would want to advocate and be a strong proponent for the private property rights of the landowners. So I think that developers, painting that with a wide brush for me to say that I would be anti-development, no, I wouldn't be anti-development. I would be pro-smart development and making sure that we're compliant and not invading private property owners' rights as they develop their property. So we're having government working for the people, not against the people.
Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Thank you. In my capacity as a council member, I am required to be associated with developers in the deliberation of their projects when they bring it to Mount Pleasant Town Council. Will I stand up to them? Yes, I will, and I have. The policies and ordinance that governs how we deal with developers, I deal with all developers within the boundaries in that capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos.
Do I have any association with the beach company? Likewise, I haven't received any campaign funding from the beach company. I have sat and deliberated on some of their projects when I was on town council. Will I stand up against developers, I think is the question. And I don't think it's a issue of standing up against developers. I think it's an issue of standing for the comprehensive plan. And there's no doubt that we have to have economic development. We have to have the tax base that it brings in. But we need to get away from the idea that economic development is solely residential building. We need to have businesses here, freestanding. ATD is a great example of a business that came here, contributed immensely to the community, created very little traffic, and those are the type businesses that we need to find. But here again, the comprehensive plan lays all that out, and we need to work within the boundary of that plan. There's no doubt that property owners have rights, and they have expectations. They have vested rights. And if those vested rights are violated, it's the taxpayer that pays for the lawsuits. So everything has to be a balance, but economic development, let me say, is necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Okay, thank you very much. So once again, the comprehensive plan answers a lot of the questions. And, well, oh yeah, I guess the first answer is no, I'm not involved with Mr. Darby, although I have seen a lot of his plans come across. I do serve on the planning commission. And as long as we follow the comprehensive plan, guys, Thomasine hit it, Joe hit it, the comprehensive plan answers all of their issues. One of the things that we've not talked about yet is the impacted areas. If you get a project that drops in the middle of a neighborhood, I want to hear from the neighbors that they're impacting. My job is to serve the neighbors and the citizens of Mount Pleasant. If everything fits and everything goes along well, and do their homework, and make everybody happy and compromise, that's what it is, compromising. By following the comprehensive plan, compromising with the impacted areas, I have no problem with development and growth.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
Well, I'm not affiliated either, but I am a real estate agent. And as a real estate agent, I interact with almost everyone. And as mentioned earlier, when everyone was talking about the comprehensive plan, a little known fact that everyone doesn't know is that in 1998, I ran for Charleston County Council, and my platform was based on planning and citizen involvement. And that's where the comprehensive plan later folded after my election in 1998, because it was an act that was passed in 94 that the comprehensive plan was to be enabled in 1999. And the reason I was running was to draw attention to that fact. Since that time, I've been involved in a lot of what goes on in the town of Mount Pleasant, and because of that, I've been able to interact with a lot of the real estate agents. With developers. Getting back to Mr. Darby, the secretary called me the other day and told me that he was going to donate something to me, but I guess it's in the mail because I haven't received it. But, again, when it comes to development, if you read what I have on my card, I am for development, but it's for businesses and green businesses, because we don't want businesses that will affect our environment. And when I say businesses, again, like I said earlier, I say businesses that produce a product and bring higher salaries to the town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Glasson.
Well, I do know John Darby, and John is supporting my campaign both financially as well as Chris mentioned that the green fence. I love that green fence, and I especially love the two giant blue signs that say "Re-elect Ken Glasson" on the sides of them. I don't have an ongoing project with the Beach Company or John Darby, but if you look at my track record, and I think the second part of the question was, would I stand up to builders? That's what I've done for 4.5 years. If you know my background, if you've gone to the newspaper, if you've been in this community, my biggest donor of the last campaign, we stood up to for 4.5 years, and that threat doesn't exist in this town. And you can build a project now based on the merits of the project and not based on who's standing behind it. So I can't paint a better picture than that. Am I building friendly or business friendly? Sure. But as was mentioned by Thomasine, it will be within the comprehensive plan. If not, don't bring it across our desk. And if you're going to do something behind the doors and backdoor, don't bring it. We will stand right up to you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Was
you.
I last or first?
You're last.
Wasn't I first? Were you first?
No, Mr. Michael was first. Got a chart. On top of it. All right. This question will go to you, Mr. Nichols, first. Please state your plan to deal with unfunded retirement plan liability.
Unfunded retirement plan liability. I would offer to you, the audience, that really 3 or 4 months ago, nobody even knew anything about this. So let's start with, what are we talking about? I went to there's lots of committee meetings. I've been to a bunch of them. I see Dr. Ryan, I know he was there. And they handed out a PowerPoint presentation. And I have a copy of it in front of me. And essentially what we're talking about here is retiree health care benefits for the men and women who have served the town of Mount Pleasant for X amount of time. And it turns out that the government, and Chris can probably speak to this because it's general accounting standards and so forth, has required the town to put away X amount of dollars, if you will, almost into a savings account in order to fund the promises that were made to the town employees, including your police and fire and public service folks, to take care of them when they retire. The problem is that the council didn't. And let me show you the chart. I hope you could see it. But within a few years, we're going to go to $20 million of having to find funds. Well, how do you do it? You either raise taxes and fees, or you look for cuts elsewhere. Well, if you know anything about me, it's going to be looking for cuts elsewhere and not raising taxes and fees. There's some specifics I won't bore you with, but it's not a fee increase and it's not a tax increase. And it is to keep those promises made to those employees, though.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Nobody wants me to answer this question in an accounting sense. I could go through GASB 45 and put up the Excel sheet and show you the returns and everything else, and we could go through a long 30-minute explanation, but 90 seconds certainly wouldn't cover that, and all of you would be asleep. So certainly I understand how pension funding and liabilities work, and that would be an asset, but I think the biggest issue we have here is how do we pay for it? And unfortunately, we've dug ourselves in a hole a little bit, and what we really have to do here is we have to look for other ways to pay for it. The problem is we've kept people at a low salary with a promise of benefits, and we can't break that promise to people. A town policeman comes on to staff at the town of Mount Pleasant making $27,000 a year. The reason why they come to work for such a low salary is because of this benefit. So we can make a correction going forward for new people who come in, but we can't change the promise that we've made to those that already have vested in the system and those that have retired. It's just not fair. Those people retired under a promise, and they're working under a promise, and we need to make sure we keep that. My understanding of pension accounting and governmental accounting, I think, is going to be tremendous. The problem is we expect returns that we don't get. It's the same problem the state of South Carolina has. They expect a 7.5% return on their money. Well, if somebody can tell me where they're getting that in the market right now, please, I'll go invest there. So we can't assume these unrealistic returns. We need to be careful about how we're funding these things. So again, I'd love the opportunity to dig in and work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
The unfunded retirement plan. I guess first of all, I would tell you that I would recognize it and address it, that it's a problem. It's not a problem unique to Mount Pleasant. We have the same problem on the state level. It's $17 billion. We have the same problem on a national level. So Mount Pleasant's not unique. So my first step would be to recognize it and to stop kicking the can down the road. Have ownership of it. The second step I would do is to explore all options, including privatization. Perhaps that's an option. Maybe we need to finally stop self-insuring and explore the options of privatization. Let's take a look at the split. Currently we're on an 80-20 split. Maybe we need to look at the vesting period. I think that all things are on the table, including the option of privatization, and I would guarantee you that the people hurt or affected the most would people new or fairly new into the system, and the people that would be hurt the least are our retirees. Thank you.
Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Thank you. GASB 45 is a mandate that has been passed down from the federal government. It's the general accounting procedure and practices. It requires all municipalities and businesses to set aside monies for their retirees as well as their current employees. Until the bottom of our economy fell out several years ago, and the cost of health care has gone through the ceiling, it was not the problem. It was a problem, but not of the magnitude that it is today. To say that we have the answer, or there's any one answer or one fix, I would not be telling you the truth. This is a huge problem that's very costly, and we have to look at all options to come to a decision. I agree wholeheartedly as far as our employees are concerned, to protect the promises that were made to them. We need to do everything possible to keep those promises. Our employees are the people who make the town of Mount Pleasant what it is. We are currently involved in a committee consisting of upper-level management, town employees, and council member to look at all options that we can find a way to address this issue. And yes, it will be costly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bezos.
The unfunded retirements and the insurance is certainly a problem. And it's one that's been in the making for a while because the state of South Carolina and the town's participation in the state retirement system, they overprojected what they were going to make. They simply didn't make it, so there was a funding shortfall because the money wasn't there. And now we're going to have to fix that. And as all have said, we're going to have to look at core services. We're going to have to tighten our belt somewhere. But there is an immediate answer and some immediate help, and that is tax increment financing districts. We use those in the town of Mount Pleasant. We have several. They're going to expire in 2014. And when they expire, that money, which has been used for road projects and different things, will flow back to the general funds of the town, the county, and the school district. So that money that starts to flow back into the town's general fund, I would certainly be in favor of taking that and using it as an immediate source of money to start helping the retirements. We've done without it. I think those districts are 15 years old. We'll just turn off TIF district projects and turn it on to the retirement.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Thank you very much, and that's exactly right. The citizens and I'm sorry, let me start all over again. The employees of the town of Mount Pleasant really make Mount Pleasant what it is today. They put their heart and soul out there every day. The policemen, the firemen, sanitation department. They deserve what we promised them, and we have not explored every option that's out there. That's why Wednesday mornings at 8:15 we meet with a group of staff, group of council members, department heads, and we're working on this issue. It's a tough issue, and it's not going to be cheap. It's exactly right. But the problem is, where are you going to draw the line? Where are you going to stop it? How are you going to do that? And that's one thing that everyone has to, once again, compromise and put into the pot. It's not just one person's issue, it's everybody's issue. Everybody in this room's issue. So it's a very important issue, and we've got to figure it out, and we've got to look at all options before we can make any decisions at all. Everyone's got to be totally educated and totally on board with the changes that need to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
Well, there's not much more I can say, because this is just going to be a case of robbing Paul to pay Peter. That's the bottom line. And I don't see from what anybody said here today, except Mr. Bustos, about the tax increment financing, where those funds become available in the short term. But nobody has talked about the long term. And in the long term, as I've been stating earlier, we need to change our direction in the town of Mount Pleasant. If you look at North Charleston, they are prospering in this time when everybody else is suffering. Fortunately, they did get going, but that's the type of attitude we need to start taking in the town of Mount Pleasant. We need to start aggressively recruiting businesses that produce a product and have higher paying salary and bring a higher tax base to the town of Mount Pleasant in order to pay for bills like this and for when we want to do future things such as the senior center expansion. We need a different approach to our tax base in Charleston, and that is to bring in new businesses, green businesses, that will not affect our environment.
Thank you. Mr. Glassen?
A couple of things, just as an educational piece. If you understand what the enigma that we're dealing with, first off, when this came about, Thomasine is right. We did not have a biggest animal that has now been thrust upon us, and that is a lot of the changes that have occurred with, for lack of a better term, the Obamacare that's coming upon us. We self-insure ourselves as a township. In other words, we don't go out to an insurance carrier and purchase an insurance policy. We have what's called self-insurance. We pay our own fees, and we charge each member of the town, employees, they pay a fee as they would an insurance carrier. We carry our own insurance, and then for larger cases, we have a reinsurance that's out there. The issue that this football has been passed down the pike, so to speak, you've got a 5-year vesting. Okay, you've got lifetime health benefits for not only you, but your spouse. So unlike, and we'll take an example in North Charleston, they go to age 65 and it's the Medicare, and then they purchase a supplemental on top of that. So that allows them to provide the exact same coverage, but at a less cost to the town. And we didn't offer that up front, so now we're having to deal with that now. Now, taking this bull by the horns, I met with the town administrator last week, and the committee that Thomasina and Nick and I all three sit on with senior staff members to tackle this. I've already put one proposal before the table, and I've got another one on a conference call with a company out of New York City that's dealt with this on a national level. This is not just parochial towards Mount Pleasant, but we will take care of it, and we will tackle it. Thank you.
Mr. Michael?
I agree very much with Mr. Freeman's thought of bringing in businesses into the area that will pay high salaries and pay the taxes to give us funds to help thank our employees of the town of Mount Pleasant for their hard and very selfless service to the citizens.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bustos would like to respond. 60 seconds, please.
I just want to add one thing, and a promise made should be a promise kept to the employees, because it's the employees that provide all the good services that we're used to in Mount Pleasant. And partially to what Mr. Freeman said, if you look at the training and recruiting costs, if you go too thin on keeping employees, you'll wind up spending more money through recruiting and training. And this has been proven time and time again. So really, there's going to have to be a long-term view of this thing to adequately address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glassen.
Just a quick comment, and although I don't like to do this all the time, I partially agree with Joe. However, two things that were important in addition to that. We don't expect an unrealistic rate of return. We are mandated as to when we go to a bank to store money, that bank has to have a matching dollar in there. That lowers our rate of return. We can't just go out and put it into the market. So it's federally mandated and run through the town. So we're not really out there saying, well, let's get 20% to offset that. That's unrealistic. And I don't agree that we would have to raise our taxes and cut. I would like to see where we could cut more. You know, having gone on a trash run and spent time in a police car and gone on a fire truck, I'm telling you, we do more with less than any town. In this town, you all are very demanding on services. So without that being said, I think that when we start to look at that long term, you can't take away from those services. I just don't think there's room there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to another question. Mr. O'Neill, we'll start with you. There are areas within the town of Mount Pleasant that are not under the town's jurisdiction. They are under the jurisdiction of Charleston County. This makes it very difficult for the residents of Mount Pleasant to resolve any issues that arise from entities within those areas. What would you do to correct this town versus county problem?
I think we have to level the playing field between the town and the county. Unfortunately, right now, a good example is if you want to come in and you want to build a new building, and you want to build it in Charleston County, you don't have to pay any impact fees, nothing. If you turn around and you build that same building in the town of Mount Pleasant, you might end up paying $40,000, $50,000 in water and sewer and general impact fees. So what businesses have a tendency to do is seek out something in the county and then later annex into the town. And the problem with that is that for too long, there's that benefit there and that imbalance. So we need to make sure that we're looking at those areas, and we need to make sure we annex those guys into the town before they build. We need to find those properties and we need to bring them in, because unfortunately, people who live in the area we know is Mount Pleasant but don't live in the town of Mount Pleasant, they benefit from the services the town provides. They go to the parks, They go and participate in the recreation department, and they get the benefits without paying the costs. So we need to make sure that we're looking at opportunities to annex things that are in the county into the town. Again, I can't reiterate this impact fee issue enough because I see it all the time. And you can look at the different prices in commercial real estate and see that the prices that are in the county and not in the town, they're cheaper for that, or I mean, more expensive for that same issue because they don't have to pay those fees. So we need to make sure we're leveling the playing field between the counties and the town of Mount Pleasant.
Mr. Smith?
The unincorporated areas, often referred to as donut holes within the town of Mount Pleasant. You may be surprised that there are not just a few of them, there are hundreds of them within our town of Mount Pleasant. And we need to focus, that is one of the areas, one of the few areas of opportunity for the town of Mount Pleasant to expand. We got water surrounding us on most areas, and we're not going to go too far north of 17 that we can incorporate and annex into the town. So the opportunity for expansion for the town of Mount Pleasant is through incorporating and annexing these unincorporated areas, the donut holes throughout the city. And servicing those unincorporated areas is a huge issue for us as well. There's huge opportunity for us to collaborate and have some synergies continue between the county and the town to better service, especially if we were to just annex those unincorporated areas into the town. Thank you.
Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Thank you. I'd like to try to clarify a few issues as far as annexation is concerned. First, on one hand, we have individual property owners who have their residential property that are not annexed into the town, and most of them are not annexed by choice. They can, if their property is contiguous to property that is already in the town, they have the choice to annex if they choose to do so. When it comes to larger development, whether it's condominiums or commercial business, things of that sort, that's where the impact fees come in. And when you talk about leveling the playing field, one of the things you have to realize, with those types of businesses, commercial coming into the town, they bring an impact. They impact our roads, they impact our fire, police, recreation, and the impact fee they pay is for the percentage of impact that they're causing on the overall community. They help to pay for the roads that the additional people coming into the town would use. Yes, we have had developers who have built their project and then wanted to come into the town afterwards. They don't pay anything, but we still get the same impact. And who experiences those impacts? The residents that live within the town of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos?
Unfortunately, annexation is a harder nut to crack than we've talked about tonight. The key to annexation lies in the state legislature. Until they change annexation laws, the town of Mount Pleasant cannot annex any areas of the county into the town. That person must be contiguous and they must want to annex. The town cannot just annex it. The key to that is the town's coordination with the state legislature to explain to them that all those donut holes within the town limits should be within the town. But unfortunately, until state law changes, the town of Mount Pleasant cannot annex those areas of the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I add?
I'm going to let everybody, and then you can follow up. Mr. Collins?
I served on the, as chairman of the annexation department when I first came along, and Joe hit it right on the head. It is a lot harder to annex into town as you would imagine it is. It's just almost impossible. We've talked to the state legislators. They understand the problem. They're getting a service. The donut holes are getting the services. They're impacting our areas. But yet again, we're not getting any tax revenue, and they're not getting we're just not getting the tax revenue from them. So yeah, it's a tough nut to crack. It really is. We've tried some aggressive things lately. We're in the process of trying to get them to come into the town as hardly as we can. We're working on it hard, but it's tough. It really is. So we're working on it. All I can tell you is that it's just a work in progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
I'll try and be quick on this annexation thing and about the unincorporated area, and then get to that real question. One of the things that many of the other individuals haven't mentioned is that we have this situation with the donut holes, especially with the larger communities, is because of past council members. Normally when you annex a town expand, you just annex and continue to annex with those property next to it. What the town of Mount Pleasant did was they used the water to go around a lot of these communities and then started annexing those properties, which created a large situation where we have a big gap between the northern part and the southern Mount Pleasant because of it. It's not because of the, so the problem is not the unincorporated area, it's the problem is the actions of the past town council members. But to get back to the original question, I served on the Charleston County Planning Commission, and one of the things that we've been working on ever since I've been there is to try to create a situation where the zoning area and the zonings and the building codes and everything between the town and the county are along the same accord. And we have made some progress in that area. We did some more that we need to do, but we are moving in that direction.
Thank you. Mr. Glasson?
Linda Page still here? She's hiding in the back. You know, just a comment on Linda. I watched her take on, and I know Nick had it at first in my second 2 years. In the last 2 years, Linda's had it. An amazing job that she's done. It is extremely difficult, as was mentioned to the people to my right, that to annex into the town, and the rules are working against us. I know that inside our tax bill, when you see your tax bill that comes from the county, there is a placement there, and some of the money that is paid to the county that bypasses the town, the tax revenue is paid back, but not nearly at what we desire. There's also, I know that we've spoken with Mount Pleasant Waterworks and Public Services on trying to those donut holes and having a different scale that might be a little bit more expensive if you are not willing to annex into the town as motivation to do so, be that strong arming as it may. The tax base needs to come to Mount Pleasant. Linda, I don't know how you do it. I know that you continue to beat that drum hard, and I know there's a lot of donut holes. And what George mentioned is correct, except for we utilized that water in an instance to bypass a community that would not annex. So we could annex others in. And we weren't going to let that be the wall to stop us. We utilized the laws that existed to step over that and make sure we can annex more into the town. Because as Thomasina said, the impact fees are there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Michael?
As many of you, just like me, know that Brother Joe Riley at downtown Charleston would annex the world into the city of Charleston, making us more money. And as a police officer on Daniel Island, I had to deal with the donut holes with Berkeley County, and it was very difficult to get the residents out there, law enforcement, EMS, and fire personnel service with those donut holes. And I feel that that is a problem in Mount Pleasant that needs to be fixed. And if we are able to get some of those donut holes patched up, we can provide better and quicker service to those residents and businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols?
Annexation is extraordinarily complicated, but I'm reminded that not all landowners, believe it or not, actually may want to be a part of Mount Pleasant, and we have to respect their wishes as well. I don't know why. It's a great place to be. I want to be. So we have to be careful with annexation. So what that means is we need to market the town. We need to go to those landowners and figure out and offer to them what are our services, how can we help improve each of their lives, whether it's a commercial business or residential. I think the great example of that is the battle that's been going on between Charleston and James Island. The folks on James Island, a significant number of them want to be their own city, their own standalone entity, and each time that comes back, the mayor of Charleston, in a very aggressive way, attempts to get additional puzzle pieces, and that's kind of what you're talking about as far as annexation. So I do commend Councilmember Page, and it is a thankless job, and it's extraordinarily complicated, but let's market ourselves and make it less complicated by having the landowners say, we want to come in. But I'm not about sort of snaking around and sort of forcing them in.
Thank you. Would you like to respond, Ms. Stokes Marshall?
Thank you.
60 seconds.
Okay. One of the things, someone made a comment about the town of Mount Pleasant providing services to the unincorporated areas. As far as the fire services and the police services, Mount Pleasant do provide that. However, the county of Charleston contracts with the town of Mount Pleasant in order to provide that service. So there is a fee, and that fee ultimately spirals down to the property owners of those unannexed pieces of property. So for fire and police services, they do pay for it. Town provides it, but they do pay for it indirectly.
Thank you. All right, another question from the audience. And I believe this starts with Mr. Smith. What can Mount Pleasant do to expand our commercial tax base?
It would be nice to bring in some light industry manufacturing into here to increase the base to get some of the 10% tax base in here. But then the question goes, where do we put them? We don't have hundreds of acres of land to recruit from an economic development perspective to place manufacturing. I think there's some opportunity perhaps in the I believe it's a little more than 300 acre development in Carolina Park that is existing that we could perhaps go after and recruit some light manufacturing to be placed in that area. Going after some and diversifying the 4% and 6% tax base and going after some of the 10% is an opportunity, but I think due to our landlockedness here, it is going to be limited to where we can place those higher tax base businesses.
Ms. Stokes Marshall.
Well, one thing is for sure, we cannot grow any more land. I believe that as far as being able to generate additional tax bases, small businesses, and the town has already started an incubator to support the efforts of small business owners to develop here in the town of Mount Pleasant. Research and development and technology type businesses. When we talk about large industries, I don't believe, at least my experience in communicating with our residents, to have huge industrial type businesses. They don't see that in the town of Mount Pleasant. However, there are types of businesses that will serve to support our tax base, and I believe that's in the area of research, development, and technology, as well as the small businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos?
I believe in order to get more of the type industries that we want, as I mentioned earlier, light, clean, ATD was a prime example. We need to go out to the business community, find those people who do that for a living, let them go do it, and then when they come to the town and say, this is what we need in order to accomplish this goal, then let the town help them. For 9 people on town council and the mayor to be the sole people responsible for going out and finding business, I think is just incorrect. We all have a vast amount of experience, but it's in different things. I've probably broken more things than I've put together. So we need to reach out to the business community, get them working for us, and then leverage what they are doing with what we're trying to accomplish, and that way we'll be successful.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Great, thank you. I'm going to expand on what Joe says. Mr. Bustos, you hit a good spot. I think you're exactly right. But businesses, we've got to let businesses be businesses. It takes a village, guys. It takes education. It takes quality of life. It takes quality projects. But also it takes the ability and the foresight for the town council members and for the citizens to be able to invite these people over, to show them what we have, show them what we can do, and then, of course, incentives. And any type of incentives that we can get to go with them is important also. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
We've gotten on to my subject now. Well, myself personally, as a council member, I would not expect myself to be the one to go out and recruit new businesses to the area. We already have people that are willing to do that already. Those same developers that we talked about sooner, they'll be glad to help work with us to bring in certain businesses into the area. We have a Charleston Area Regional Alliance that's already working to do the same thing that we're talking about right now. They work with the North Charleston to bring businesses into North Charleston right now. We need to be working with them. We have a Home Builders Association. They would be glad to work with us to see about trying to bring new businesses in the area. The Chamber of Commerce is right there, ready. Mary's right there waiting on us to work with us to help bring businesses into the area. It is not rocket science. Cities do it all the time. We just need to change our attitude. That's all we have to do. Bring the businesses in. And I'm not talking about any large industrial thing that would have a major impact on our beautiful city. I am talking about the high-tech business, the research like Thomasina mentioned, and the same field that I was in, software development. Those type of companies are what I'm talking about when I talk about bringing businesses to Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Glasson.
Well, I will politely disagree that we need to change our attitude, because I think we have a great attitude in Mount Pleasant. If you look at the entrepreneurial spirit that made this country great, it's two things: setting an environment for a business to do well, and we have done that in Mount Pleasant, and the example I gave with Trader Joe's is a perfect example of it. And then the government needs to get out of the way, because every time we step our toes and try and do the job and pick the winners and losers, what we end up doing is, can't say that word, messing it up. And I get emotional and excited about it because it's true. We've done this on council over the last 5 years. We are now business friendly. We set an environment, have a great community, we grease the skids, so to speak, so when you come in, you're not hampered by our process, but you're encouraged to come in. You come in, you get your business up and running, and then we step out of the way. We've got a young lady named Quinn Stitchfield that works in the town, is a representative to go out to the businesses. She held her first expo. She has these business development just to support and not get in the way of a business and the entrepreneurial spirit that made us great, and it's working in this town. When I sat with the builder this morning and discussed with him, he said the entire attitude of going and having to deal with the town has changed. So, create the environment and let the government get out of the way and do your job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
Once again, I agree with Mr. Freeman's idea of using what we already have in the area with the Home Builder Association, the Chamber of Commerce, to go out and find the businesses to come and let the businesses make the decision to come here or not.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
Right. I think what Ken was saying is what I agree on. Governments and politicians do not create jobs. You in this audience and others like you all over the place are the folks who create jobs and bring businesses to great places. We live in a great place. Why wouldn't you want to bring your business to Mount Pleasant? Is it because we have a poor recreation department? I doubt it. Is it because that it's not incredibly beautiful? No. It's because we are hindered by a couple of things. One, regardless of what is said up here, our town still has the reputation of not being business friendly. Maybe it's a start, but if you folks I've been talking to still relate to me over and over. They'll go out to Clements Ferry Road, they'll go out to Dorchester, so there's continued work that needs to be done in that way. The branding campaign has been nice, come on over, but let's put it into practice. Number two, we just don't have large tracts of land available to bring in many larger businesses. With larger businesses tend to come salary jobs and jobs to pay benefits to folks. We do have some opportunities with some tracts in the Gen Bar building, which is over in Oakland Plantation. I could see becoming a 4-year extension campus of a college or university, perhaps University of South Carolina at Mount Pleasant. There's some other ideas, but communication about what we have, leverage our assets, and then get us out of the way, get politicians and the government out of the way, and let you, the citizens, create the jobs and bring the businesses here.
Mr. O'Neill.
You know, my partner Brian Mooney and I, we talk about this all the time. We probably have over 100 clients that own businesses in Mount Pleasant. And certainly we have businesses all over the Tri-County area. And what we hear often is the town of Mount Pleasant is getting better, but it's still not business friendly. We didn't need to lose benefit focus to Daniel Island. That was a huge tax base for Mount Pleasant and a huge employer, but they left and they went to Daniel Island. Something I hear all the time is, if I'm a new business and I want to come to Mount Pleasant, I pay a business license fee. That business license fee is based off my gross income, not my net income. So if I want to come start a new business, and most new businesses, if you've ever owned one, no, you don't make any money the first year. You don't normally make any money the second year, and by the third year you might make a little. But I'm having to pay a business license fee when I'm not making any money. That's not business friendly. That's discouraging business. So I think that while on the right track, there are still other areas we need to improve, and there's things that we need to look at. We can do better, and we can be more friendly to expanding our tax base. And to Mark's point, I don't know that there's a lot of room for manufacturing, but they pay 10.5% tax, which is certainly a lot more than retailers pay on their personal property taxes. So if there is an opportunity there to keep some of these larger employers that are going to pay higher personal property taxes, we need to make sure that we're listening to their needs and taking care of what they need to stay here to provide more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bustos wants to respond. 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. On the discussion of being business friendly, I'd like to throw a couple of numbers out there. In the budget this year, the town's anticipating collecting $23 million in property taxes on homes and property in the town of Mount Pleasant. It is also looking at picking up $18 million in fees. $18 million, almost as much as what we get in property tax. Those fees create a friction that slowly grinds the wheels of commerce to a stop. We need to go back and we need to look at those. Franchise fees, what folks pay for their cable and their electricity, I think are too high at 5%. So what I would like to do is look at these fees, and I think we have something there that we can work on that can help, but the fees have just gotten a little bit too high and I think are counterproductive.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman wants to respond, and then I'll let you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, I'd just like to respond to the notion that everybody keeps talking about we don't have the land in Mount Pleasant. I respectfully have to disagree with everyone. We have, as someone has mentioned, Carolina Park as a location. The Patriots Point is part of the urban corridor. There's a lot of land down there where a computer business could be located. We have Central Mount Pleasant. It's not developed yet. They want to put a lot of homes in there. They have the area where they have the MUSC building. There's a lot of space in there for businesses to go in that area. So I don't understand why people are saying that, but we still have a lot of land, even next to the park area, that was recently bought in Mount Pleasant, where businesses can go in Mount Pleasant.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
I would just want to reemphasize the fact that we want to make sure that in my opinion, we should be focusing on a pro-business environment, making sure that town council focuses on its core services, and that's less government, not more government, not picking winners and losers, and as mentioned earlier, that we have an open for business sign up and running. It's like the farmland. If we can create fertile soil, businesses will choose us. We should not be celebrating Boeings coming to our area every 10 to 15 years. We could be celebrating new businesses coming to Mount Pleasant by staying focused on the core services, making sure that we have low fees, low taxes, a highly educated workforce, and a balanced budget, and making sure that our ground is continued to be fertile.
All right. Another question, and I believe we start with you, Ms. Stokes Marshall. This is a multifaceted question, so hang in there with me.
Get your pen.
Get your pen. What will the town of Mount Pleasant be like in 20 years? In other words, how will you make it a great place to live in the future? Please speak to the traffic situation now. Is the answer build more roads?
I don't believe the answer is building more roads. I think the answer would be an integration of our traffic system, whereas between vehicles on the road and public transportation. As I indicated earlier, the projection for our population within the next 10, 15 years is 100,000 people. To think that we could adequately accommodate additional vehicles on our road to move in a manner that would be acceptable No. A lot of people don't want to use, or do not use our Carter bus services. I think that Carter provides a wonderful services. It certainly, in this economy, would save in terms of what we're paying for gas. It certainly would help to eliminate some of the pollution in our air. And it would provide a service to allow people to move from one, not just the town of Mount Pleasant, but from one end of the community to the other. So I think we need to seriously look at incorporating public transportation, not only incorporating, but expanding it.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos.
Yeah, in 20 years, the town will be 100,000 people. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Clearly, we cannot build more roads. We're a peninsula. We're surrounded on 3 sides by water. We simply can't pave over all of Mount Pleasant and say just drive where you wish. There have to be some limits. But our traffic plan needs to focus on interconnectivity. We do need to have a public transportation component, and we need to follow up with infill development, utilizing all that infrastructure that is already in the ground. You know, we have vacant pieces of land where sewer and water is in the ground. The police and fire departments drive by every day, but it's not paying its way. Infill development is key to that, and we need to do that. Most of you remember, I was the one who fought very hard the idea of 3 overpasses on Johnny Dodge Boulevard. The engineers showed we could do it at grade. So I dug in hard enough to get 2 of them out, but 1 of them remained. And you know, my fear is going forward that we let Highway 17 look like another Rivers Avenue or another Savannah Highway. I think Mount Pleasant's better than that. Not casting any dispersions on Charleston or North Charleston, but I think Mount Pleasant is unique in its own right.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Okay, good. 20 years from now, I see, once again, a beautiful community. I really do. I believe that, no, we don't need to build any more roads, but we do need to do the infill. We've got plans in place now for high density. Work, live, and play. Work, live, and play. I mean, who wants to live above a restaurant? Not me, but once again, that's a possibility to fill in these areas so people can walk to work and they can walk to the grocery stores. They can use the public transportation a whole lot better. So I feel like it's going to happen. We just got to let it go. We just got to bring it on, fill in these infills like Joe was saying, but do it smart.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman?
I don't know if you mean how I would like to see it or how it will be. Because how I would like to see it.
How will you make it a great place?
I would plan to make it a great place by, in the future, ensuring that we do have more pedestrian and bike paths in the town of Mount Pleasant, and that we do have mass transit in the town of Mount Pleasant. I rode the mass transit today just to get a feel for how it is. And we had that 1 local bus, but if we had more than that 1 local bus, I believe more people would ride the mass transit because you could get around without having to use your vehicle. Now, getting to the situation about transportation, unfortunately, with the school being built, Jenny Moore and Lang, all that traffic right now will have to go on Hamlin Road. There will have to be some sort of interconnecting in that area to relieve that traffic where Jenny Moore and Lang School will be built. So there will be some roads that will have to be built in the future. Now, as far as our main traffic, as far as through traffic or Highway 17, my solution is that we need to start working with McClintock, Owendale, Sullivan's Island, and Olive Palms, where we all have a transportation plan for this area. Because what they're doing in the area affects our area. So we have to work together as one area with one master transportation plan in order to maintain a smooth traffic flow in Mount Pleasant in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Glasson.
You guys keep listening. The answer to the question is no. When Thomasina mentioned about an hour and 15 minutes ago, the comprehensive plan which guides the decisions that we make on the development of our community, in that we plan for 100,000 people. So as 100,000 people grow, and we grow into that, when my son, who's now 12, becomes 32 years old, you know, the goal is to make him want to move back and reside here. So with the overpasses, with the beautification of 17, when you see the finished product, if you haven't looked at it, the schematics that we have are really amazing. With the increased vegetation, the traffic flow, the overpasses, it will be a beautiful community, yet it will be able to absorb the increase that we have in our future residents. I don't know how to drag this out for a couple minutes. However,
Thank you. Mr. Michael.
In 20 years, I personally see this town as a beautiful, vibrant, laid-back, low-country town, just like Beaufort is now south of us, where people will want to come tour our facility here instead of Charleston, but Mount Pleasant being the #1 tourist location in the world.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols.
You know, I can't even imagine what it's going to be like 20 years from now. Where is technology going to take us? How many people will be working out of their homes in virtual offices? How much of the problem might be resolved by you won't have to drive over the bridge or a bridge to go and get a job? I don't know the answer to that. More roads? Maybe. If they're planned correctly, we might need another road someplace. I'm not going to say an absolute no to that. I believe that public transportation has a role in all of this, and routes 40 and 401 have been pretty successful. I think we need to examine under the current CARTA system. In the express bus, my daughter took it for 4 years. We were grateful to go to the College of Charleston. That's a real winner. But I think we need to be open-minded. You know, $150 million worth of road improvement projects are in place right now. I'm hopeful that when they are completed, that we have a better experience with traffic. I don't think it's a solution. I think it's a start. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility to at least explore some alternate methods. You always hear about light rail. Is it feasible? I have no idea. I'll explore it. I don't want land use planning, however, to enact social change on the citizens of Mount Pleasant.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill.
In 20 years, I'll look forward to joining the senior center on the north end of town. Well, first of all, I think what we need to, and I remember Billy Swales talking to me about this the first time I met him. The town council was looking into a smart traffic light grid, and I think that's huge. I mean, how many people on the way from the north end of town to the bridge get stopped at 4 or 5 different traffic lights? I think, you know, I see the IBM commercials about how this could work, and the traffic lights and smart grids and time lights. We've got to walk down that road. We've got to take a look at that before we start expanding roads or building more roads. You know, I remember 20 years ago, Snee Farm was in the middle of nowhere, and everybody was crazy to put it out there, and I was playing Dino Putt-Putt golf on Coleman Boulevard. But to Chris's point, I don't know where we'll be in 20 years. I think it's going to be exciting to see. The economy is changing so fast, the global economy is changing. But we've got to, once this economy gets better, this town can run again. I mean, it's going to be, I think there's a lot of pent-up demand. And when people start loaning money again and salaries start to go up again, I think this town is going to have a challenge again in growth. Right now, what we're trying to figure out is what to do when growth is slowed. So I'm excited about the future, and I've got a 1-year-old son. So I mean, he's going to go to school here. He's going to grow up here. So you know, I want this to be a great place for him, and you know, for everyone that's here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
What will it look like in 20 years? Is building more roads the answer? No to that question. My hope and vision that Mount Pleasant would continue to be the great place that it is for us to live, raise our families, own a business, and work here, and have a government that works for us. I would hope that our children would be able to continue to stay here. We as the parents would retire here, continue to enjoy a wonderful lifestyle, and die here. I think that's going to... This answer is brought to you in part by McAllister Smith Funeral. Sorry. I think that would include low taxes, less regulations, a balanced budget, pro-business and pro-family environment, low crime, and a highly educated workforce. As I said all along, that's my hope and vision for Mount Pleasant in 20 years. Thank you.
I was just getting ready to compliment the candidates on how incredibly respectful they have been, abiding by their notes. It is now time for closing statements. Sincerely, I do moderate a lot of forums for the League of Women Voters, and when they told me there were going to be 9 candidates tonight, I was a little nervous. But I must commend you that you have all been very respectful of each other, very respectful of the audience, very respectful of the rules, and I commend you. So it is time for closing arguments. We are going to go in reverse order from where we started. We started with Mr. Bustos. We will start with Ms. Stokes-Marshall. You have 60 seconds for your closing arguments, and then I will give some closing statements myself. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only reason that I ever got involved in politics was to serve the people, the residents of the town of Mount Pleasant. From the very beginning, I was involved in volunteer programs. I got on council, was involved in helping to form the comprehensive plan, land use zoning plan, transportation plan. I bring a sense of history, knowledge, and understanding of the governing process that operates the government for the town of Mount Pleasant. I feel that with new council members coming on, as well as being the senior council member, I can share my experience and knowledge of that process with them to help them serve the town of Mount Pleasant as I have. I ask that you give consideration to re-electing me to the town of Mount Pleasant Council so that I can continue the work that I have started along with my fellow council members throughout the years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith. We're going to go reverse order.
Thank you. Again, my name is Mark Smith. I'm proud to be a local business owner here, and I'm proud of the work that I've been able to, I'm proud that my business has blessed me to allow me to be so active in the community, in the nonprofit world. Rolling my sleeves up and giving back to the community has just been part of my DNA and our family that we're bringing. I'd like to bring that experience of learning to do more with less, understanding the value of a dollar to work for us on the Mount Pleasant Town Council. I hope to continue to be an integral part of the community, and I just would ask you to please visit my website, votemarksmith.com, like us on Facebook, and I would ask you for your vote and your support on November the 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill.
Thank you for listening this evening. I appreciate everyone's questions. Again, for me this is exciting, being someone who's kind of in the middle here. I have a son here, my parents live here, my grandparents live here. They all live in Mount Pleasant. I own a business here, I go to church here. Obviously I live here, and I'm really excited about where Mount Pleasant's been. I'm excited about where it's going, and I think I bring a unique skill set to town council. As a certified public accountant, I look at things differently. I'm looking at how to balance budgets. I'm looking at how businesses can get better. I'm looking at how we can improve people's financial bottom line in their households and in their businesses. And that's a perspective that I work on every day, and that's what I'll bring to council. The other thing, I love the town of Mount Pleasant. This is not a platform for me to go to Columbia or go to Washington. I want to serve the town of Mount Pleasant. This is where I want to be, and that's the office that I'm running for. So I'd love to have your vote on November 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols.
Well, again, thank you to the League and to the Chamber of Commerce. I want to make this very clear. If you elect me in 2 weeks, I hope that you do, and please tell your friends and neighbors and other folks, if you like me, tell 10 of them to vote for Chris Nichols, because you know what, a very few folks are going to decide this election for the whole town. I have no friends to reward or enemies to punish. I have no dog in the hunt. I promise to work with Mayor Swales, but I don't promise to work for Mayor Swales. If you're looking for someone who wants to advocate open and accountable government, conservative leadership and values, and encourage and promote economic development, then I'm your guy. I am a committed conservative. I'll go out as things come before council, applying those principles, and in an open way and with full integrity, I hope to speak for the entire town when I cast my vote on an individual basis for those matters that come before us. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and you all have a safe drive home tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Michael.
I would like to thank my fellow hopeful council members who are willing to share their time and talents with our community. each one brings a unique gift to their service. And as I stated earlier, as a representative of town council, I will be a voice and a friendly ear to all in our community. Please remember to vote November 8th. Let's not, it's one of our basic freedoms, let's not chance losing it. And remember that Charles Pinckney, whose home is a National Historic Site on Long Point Road, was in the Constitutional Convention, which wrote the Constitution, which gave us that freedom and right.
Thank you, Mr. Glasson.
A week ago Friday, I retired after 31 years of service in the Marine Corps. And it was mentioned earlier, service, I don't know how to describe it. My entire adult life. I mean, I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old. The last 5 years I've served on council. Many of you know me through the Toys for Tots program. I don't know what bug that God implanted in me to serve others. But considering what we've gone through over the last 5 years, you'd think that I may not want to deal with all that we're doing on council. But we've changed the community for the better. And we're focused out on our future. So on November 8th, when you go into the voting booth, I just need one of the four. And I wish you would consider to allow me to continue what we've started. We've got some great milestones that we've started with. We've got more to get done. And I would like and ask for your support on that day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
I'll be short and brief. But first, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. It kind of pains me that there aren't many citizens in the town of Mount Pleasant that get involved like you do. For the number of years that I've been a candidate for Mount Pleasant Town Council, the turnout has always been small. I feel that's been a detriment to me. I feel if more people came out to vote and hear what I had to say, then they would understand that I would be the candidate that they needed to have on town council. I've never been elected, but I've been serving the community for over 10 years. I've been appointed to various communities. Most of them have been in the county. And the reason I have accepted those positions in the county is because it gives me a broader view of what's going on in the Charleston area. And I believe that's the type of people you need on council, people who have a wide range of experiences. And I bring that on November 8th. Remember, I bring experience to town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Once again, I appreciate everybody coming today. But for the last 5 years, I have been very blessed to be a servant to the community. And I feel like this is where we are. I'm not a politician, as you can tell. I'm not elegantly spoken, as you can tell. But for the last 5 years, I've been to every meeting. I've done all my homework. And I've done the things that it takes to be a good council member. I am your servant. I serve you. And then therefore, if you have a problem, you come to me. I'm very accessible. I don't want to be mayor. I don't want to be House of Representatives. I want to be your councilman for the next 4 years, because this is what my passion is. I found my passion. I challenge everyone to go find what they do and do it. What they're best at and do it. I'm best at being a councilman and being servant for you. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Bustos.
Thank you very much. Likewise, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to come here tonight. Time is something we only have a limited amount of. The one thing I'd like to say is that I have served my country, I've served my community, I've been involved, I live here, Kathy and I's extended families live here. The only thing that I've done throughout my adult life is work hard. I worked hard as a police officer, I worked hard in the Army, I went from private to lieutenant colonel, was on town council as a pilot. I not only learned to fly, but I became a flight instructor. I believe in being the best at what you can do. And what I guarantee you is someone who will study the issues and who will just work hard. And I'll listen to you. As on my cards, call Joe. I work for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank the Mount Pleasant Town Council candidates for their interesting and lively comments. Please give them a warm round of applause. you. The League would like to encourage you to study the issues carefully, learn about the positions of each candidate, and vote for the candidate of your choice on November 8th. The League's website has nonpartisan election information, including candidate listings and links to their websites or personal profiles. Be certain you have your say by casting your ballot. Without your vote, your voice will not be heard. Thank you again for coming tonight.